Anna and Ruckus and the New York agenda. Anna and Ruckus has destroyed me. Her promise to write about my vision, my incredible revelation, the most important story of the modern world, dreams of the end of the age, all a lie. Can you believe it? A newspaper reporter who lies? Turns out she wasn't working on a story about incredible revelations at all. This is an expose on on-beam abuse, pornography. The New York agenda says I am a purveyor of porn. Allison has already called. I pretended to be out so she'd have to leave a message, but she does not sound entirely displeased. I always knew you were twisted, but I never expected to actually read about it in print. My parents are appalled, maybe because I told them how much I like a well-oiled cam in hot shower. Mother's face went pale. She and Daddy refused to even talk about it. First time they shut up since we got here. It's great. Call me. Anna even gave me my own sidebar. A Roman holiday, the misogynic, homophobic, and anti-Semitic movie dreams of Mark Leach. Dream number 1. Manifests content. I am watching a movie, but I am in the movie too. The scene involves dangerous men, bad guys. I am there with a girl. We are all inside a gas station. The woman who owns it is involved with someone's boyfriend. Details are unclear, but it's clearly sexual. The bad guys like this. There is red graffiti on the walls like cave drawings. One of the pictures makes me think of some piece of primitive phallic art. I identify the bad guys as a threat to the girl. We have a discussion in which I point out to them the potential for police involvement, but I tell them not to worry about the girl. She'll be no problem for them. If necessary, I'll cut off her head, I say. This satisfies the bad guys, who immediately leave, but the girl is not happy about the decapitation talk. I'm sorry if it disturbed you, I say, explaining to them explaining that it was just my attempt to identify with and thereby protect us from the bad men. That's the way you have to deal with these Dionysian cults, I add. Analysis. Mimi Autoplator, dental psychiatrist, University of Pintal Minimus, Southwest Medical School. We call this syndrome of the female castrato. Like many classic misogynists, Mark Leach clearly wishes to deny women their identity as rational individuals. So in his dreams, he attempts to elevate his own importance through the amputation of critical portions of women, specifically their intellect. Decapitation allows him to transform women into mere receptacles of his own primitive phallic drives. It is also possible he is unrealized latent homosexual. Dream number 2. Manifest content. I am a Secret Service agent waiting outside a hotel for the arrival of an important dignitary. I am providing covert security, dressed in plain clothes to blend in with the crowd. We all stand curbside, leaning into the street to see if the motorcade is approaching. I lift up the lapel of my overcoat and speak into a hidden microphone. Of course, this is noticed by at least one person in the crowd, so I realize I have blown my cover. I am no longer covert. Then I am watching a movie, and I am in the movie. The protagonist, me, is a rich man in his mansion. I am in a crimson smoking jacket, holding a drink in a highball glass. A bad guy has broken in. He's there to rob and kidnap me, but he does not manhandle me or tie me up. I am free to move about, so as we are standing together, I surreptitiously punch an emergency code into an alarm panel, a row of 4 round buttons set into a cut stone wall. The bad guy doesn't notice what I've done, nor is he alerted. This is a silent alarm. Then we descend a set of ornate stairs. On a landing midway down the staircase, there is a little table with a phone, which is ringing. I answer as the person talks. I don't know what they are saying. I begin talking very fast. Call the police, I am being robbed, I say, then hang up. The bad guy looks at me in disbelief, but I just laugh it off. It was just a recording, I explain. We walk a short distance on this lower floor, perhaps 20 feet, then he suddenly knocks me down and grabs me from behind. He is clearly unhappy about the phone incident. He wraps his legs around me, and I realize he is going to attempt anal sex. I cry out in panic, No, I have lots of money, we can buy you a beautiful woman. Then, like a movie, the scene cuts to a couple of English detectives, no doubt from Scotland Yard. Now I am only a viewer, and the rich man and bad guy are not present. The detectives stand in front of a desk, which may be in their office or somewhere else. One detective is showing evidence to the other. It is a crude drawing, black on white paper, almost like a woodcut. It is a list of items to take on a trip. The drawing depicts shorts and a t-shirt surrounded by roughly a dozen objects that I, as the viewer, instantly recognize as condoms. I realize with horror that the bad guy has kidnapped the rich man and abducted him for some sort of cross-country sex trip in which he will use the condoms during his anal rape of the rich man. But the detectives don't understand this yet. They only know the rich man is missing. The accepted explanation is that he has left voluntarily with the bad guy on a trip, but they are still checking it out. The first detective tries to decipher the drawing. I believe it is a sort of sock that printers use to keep their ink pens in, he says. He is groping about for the proper word, but it won't come out. Analysis: Peter McCarrier, author of The Transsexual Narcissist, Men Who Love Themselves Too Much. This is clearly a classic case of projection. Mark Leach's dream mind starts out casting him in the role of the macho hero, the Secret Service agent, but this facade quickly falls away as he reveals his true, hidden desire to go on a homosexual road trip with a stranger, that is to say his unknown self, who penetrates him with printer's ink, thereby rewriting himself as a passive love toy of his own misguided passions. Dream number 3. Manifest content. It appears that my wife's house hunting activities have finally borne fruit, for I find that we have purchased a new home. I study a room that I understand was a holy place for a former owner, a Jewish man, of some local importance. There is an exposed wooden beam overhead. It is clear from several rough, unpainted patches that decorative pieces have been removed, leaving a piece of raw, unadorned lumber. I am talking loudly to someone about the house, but then we realize that the family of the former owner is outside the open window and can hear our conversation. The former owner recently died. I look out the window and see a billboard that has something to do with this man. Perhaps he was a businessman. Meanwhile, I remember that I own Ford Model A. I had forgotten about it and haven't driven it in a long time. What a thing to forget. So at once I decide to start it up, drive it again. It is a fun, and this will be like getting something new for free. It has really been that long. I go to look in the garage, wondering how I could have been blind to its presence all this time, but it is not there. The garage is now furnished as our bedroom. Then I remember that the car is still in the detached garage at my parents' former house in Duncanville. Although my parents sold this house years ago, I arrived to find a family gathering in process. The car is still the garage, parked backwards, just as I remember it. To get into the car, I must go through a contortionist's route, squeezing past the floor-mounted gearshift, and even unhooking a black radiator hose that comes up through the floor into the passenger compartment. Once I get to the seat, though, my dad steps in with no trouble. He sits at the wheel. He drives us out of the garage and idles in the driveway. The car is a convertible and the top is down, so we have a big view of the world. He looks at the dashboard and taps at a small 3-digit gauge. I've been working on this, but I'm still not getting cool air out of any of the cylinders, he says. I assume he is referring to air conditioning, and I am amazed to hear that such an old car even has AC. But I think again of the radiator hose, and I seem to know there is not enough water. Perhaps the gauge refers to the engine's coolant system, not the AC. At any rate, Dad explains this is not actually a problem. For this particular vehicle, it is normal. For some reason, the car just doesn't hold water, he explains, but the car is running, so we take off. We come to a traffic light at a rural highway. As we wait for the light to change, Dad comments that the car is running cool and dry. He has tried to fix it, even looked up some information in a repair manual, but he hasn't been able to change it. The light turns green and we start up, but a car is coming towards us in our lane. I let out a cry of alarm, but Dad is not concerned. He maintains his course, and the other car gets out of our way. We cross the highway, which looks a lot like the old intersection of Texas 114 and Fredericksbad Street in Stranger's Rest before the highway was modernized. This is Bonnie and Clyde country, just a few miles west of the spot on Texas 114 where they killed a highway patrolman on Easter Sunday, 1933. I realize that our car has now become an old pickup, a vintage 50s Ford suggestive of one my father restored when I was a boy. That was a magical vehicle. The moon followed you wherever you went. This truck is not magical or restored. It is old with faded, rust-stained paint. A new truck pulls up beside us. It is filled with teenage boys. The sheriff won't be around tonight, one of them tells us, so everyone is looking forward to a fun night. It is a Saturday night. Dad laughs. It is a Saturday. Dad laughs. This is sure to be a lively evening, he says. We soon come to a stop, and we are in the piney woods in Louisiana. It is Fort Jessup, and we are at the home of an uncle who lives near the old Leach family homestead. Several people are busy burning mounds of pine needles and branches. There are piles of logs. I don't see my uncle's trailer in what I know it is its usual place. Apparently it has been moved. While the pine burners work, we sit on the opposite side of the road and visit with family, indulging, including my wife and our boys. Several children are carrying long sticks poking at various objects, as kids like to do. This worries me. Someone will be hurt. My youngest son is carrying a very long stick, maybe 8 or 10 feet. The stick branches at the end into a V, sort of a two-pronged pitchfork. Put that down, I tell him. You'll poke somebody's eye out. And in fact, the two tips of the V's are the proper distance apart for such an accident to occur. My mother is with us too, and she suddenly jerks to life in panic. Mark, I think I hear someone stealing your car. But when I look up, I see that it is only a group of passers-by, soldiers by the looks of them, and time travelers. This is not so strange. During the second earthly conflict, thousands of soldiers engaged in training maneuvers in this very area. So I laugh at her. Then we roll around on the ground together, wrestling as if I am still her little boy. This sort of conduct is totally out of character for us. Strangely, though, she does not mind that I am laughing at her. She thinks it is funny, too, and is not the least bit angry with me. Analysis. Sestron Amore, M.D., Executive Director of the California Dionysian Analyst Cooperative. The anti-Semitism in this dream is noteworthy. However, I am primarily interested in the reference to the old jalopy running cool and dry. This corresponds to the ancient Greek description of the black bile humor called melancholy. Mark Leach sees himself as the car, a vehicle in which others travel and control his movement. He feels unresolved issues with his father, with a father who cannot get the car to run at the proper temperature, i.e., a son who does not operate at the proper psychological temperament. And clearly, Mark has unresolved mother attachment issues in the form of a panic-imparting an anima image. We see an interesting contrast between Mark as conventional adult and as the Pure Eternos, playing with his mother, i.e. a mama's boy, in close proximity to second earthly conflict soldiers, i.e. real men. He is probably an unrealized latent homosexual. I arrive in downtown Stranger's Rest amid swirling rumors that Willie Nelson will be making a guest appearance on Cowboy Roy's Radio Ranch. Imagine it, Willie singing right here on Fredericksbad Street. The mayor says he collects my $3 for parking and directs me to the far end of the vacant lot behind City Hall, where I park next to a weed-choked sack of rusted iron pipes. Tina arrives behind me, but drives past the mayor and is stopped by the constable and at the barricade intersection in front of the old saloon. She rolls down her window, and I can see from her frustrated gesturing that she is having no luck convincing him to let her pass. Watching him wave through a satellite dish-topped van marked with radio station call letters does not appear to improve her disposition either. Toots leaves his post to investigate. I live on that street, she complains. I have a right to go to my own home. Darling, nobody's keeping you out of your little apartment, the mayor says. We're just keeping out the car. It's not fair. Even if we let you pass the barricade, it wouldn't do you no good. The cafe parking lot's been requisitioned for the fair. Can't have a celebration in Texas without a fair, you know. But you can park right over next to Mark in the press lot. Tina silently fumed as she handed $3 to Toots, then kicked up a little cloud of dust as she rolled across the vacant lot. So Willie Nelson is really coming here, I ask. Can you imagine it? Toots marveled. Right here on stage with Roy. We could become the next Luckenbach. Take a look. The mayor jerks a thumb over his shoulder back toward the old rock saloon. A coat of white paint has been applied to the boarded-up front door where someone had spray-painted George Strait rules a few years back. Looks nice, I say. We took care of that this morning. Roy said he wanted to give the old girl a facelift for the show. The paint goes well with the fresh-cut lumber of the stage and the radio station banner that hangs from the cornice across the second-floor windows, billowing softly in the twilight breeze. Texas Saturday Night is made possible by a grant from Ozona Water, maker of Mentine toothpaste with fluoride 9 in original and narcissism control. Ozona water, it comes from the sky. Course, Roy's right, the mayor continued. We do need the town to look especially nice tonight. I have it on good authority we're going to have some big news announced from that stage, say, and where is the stranger? He says we are going to shoot some footage here tonight. I got an idea from a promotional video. Where is he? I have been wondering the same thing. The stranger disappeared after we rolled back into town about noon, and I haven't heard from him since. He'll be around, I assure him. Hope he gets here in time to film Willie, the mayor says. He returns to the parking lot to continue collecting parking fees. Sticking out from behind the saloon is the back half of a 30-foot RV, borrowed from Dollar Bill Buckstop for use as the dressing room for Cowboy Roy and the band. Roy spots me through the rear window and waves me inside. No, Willie ain't coming here tonight, nor any other night, Roy insists. Sure, we played on the same radio show once, but that was 30 years ago. He don't even know me. I'm this feeling like old times yet, I ask. I mean, then Roy snaps his fingers. Oh, say, I almost forgot I read about you in the paper. A surge of panic. I had hoped the New York agenda would not be well read in Stranger's Rest. Perhaps he means another story, another paper. No, I mean that one with the 3 dreams, he clarifies. They really gave you heck about the gays. Well, that's not exactly what I mean for people. Oh, don't worry about that. We don't make a fuss here in Stranger's Rest. Yes, but I'm not a what? Don't get me wrong. If one of them homosexuals comes down this way, we'll be polite, but that doesn't mean we have to love them. Homosexuals just aren't natural. Ain't that right, Jimmy? One of the Ramblin' Wranglers, a clarinet player recruited from NTSU in nearby Denton, looks up from his instrument and gives Roy an uncomfortable stare. What's wrong, boy? Roy asks. I'm gay, Jimmy says. Oh, well then, you're fired. Then Roy breaks into a fit of laughter. Hell, I love you, Jimmy, but you woodwinds are a squirrely bunch. A knock at the door. It's one of the technicians from the radio station. We're ready for sound check, Mr. Thornton, he says. Roy exits to converse with the technician. I head for the fair. The first booth is an Ozona water truck with a vinyl sunshade extended along one side, shrink-wrapped cases of plastic bottles stacked in the trapezoid of gray. The sunshade throws across the dead summer grass. Many of the townsfolk, I notice, have already received free bottled water from Dr. Adolfo Morel, who is feverishly distributing his wares, and yet perhaps not so feverishly, for despite the heat and his black suit, Morel is not sweating. His porcelain albino skin isn't even flush. Morel watches over the townsfolk with silent insect eyes, pausing occasionally to jot a note in a spiral notepad, silently working his blood-red mouth like a set of mandibles. Don't drink it, someone warns. I look up to see Father Bird bounding across the road toward the startled water drink. That's bottled rainwater, the worst. It's like pouring gasoline on a fire, especially for women. The psychic disturbances may be cataclysmic, just as the so-called Dr. Morel. But Morel is gone, replaced by a bored-looking young man in a white golf shirt with a little Ozona cloud and Yo Ozona Man stitched over his heart. Free water, he announces to no one in particular. Get your free water. Walking through the fair, the constable whistles me over to the barricade. Thought you were going to be one of my deputies tonight, he says. I got your uniform and shotgun waiting in the trunk. Oh, I guess I forgot to tell you, my editor nixed it. Said it would be a conflict of interest. That's what I figured. He was probably jealous I didn't ask him instead. Probably he'd do it if he thought it would help him pick up girls in the parking lot at Bennigan's. You going to be around for a while? Till closing time. Tonight may be the night. For that other matter I told you about, the devil worshippers? Nice, real nice. Maybe you could say it a little louder next time, put up a billboard or something. Sorry, anyway, I have it on good authority a bunch of them will be at the cemetery tonight. No kiddin'. And I'm going to grab them. You still want to come? I give him my phone number. My home phone. I run into Reese Sloan, the editor-assistant from the bureau. He has been relieved of coke machine tending duties for the evening to roam the streets of Stranger's Rest, collecting quotes and color to feed into a page one piece about the wagon train. which has left the airport and is now camped a few miles to the east. My job is to write up a couple of graphs on the concert. I have found the story of the evening, he tells me. A couple of old ladies over there are getting ready to have a pony wedding. They're getting married on horseback? No, it's a wedding of ponies. That is, 2 miniature ponies are getting hitched, so to speak. They've got a pony veil, a pony tuxedo, pony flowers, pony bridesmaids, and pony groomsmen. They even snagged a couple of cow dogs for the ring boy and flower girl. Just then, one of the women calls out Reese from across the large gravel lot, waving for him to join them. The pony wedding people seem to know you, I observe. They're paying me $100 to write up the wedding announcement. Can you believe that? And then they're going to run it in the paper, display advertising. I asked them, do you know how much that's going to cost? But they didn't care. They even hired a professional wedding photographer. With the exception of the odd equine nuptial, the town fair is shaping up as a fairly typical Texas affair. There are half-dozen or so cheesy carnival rides, including the Flying Jenny, a mule-powered contraption that takes its occupants on a slow, flat circle around a post every minute or so, and of course there are arts and crafts. Teddy bears are undoubtedly in vogue this season. Several vendors are hawking bluebonnet landscapes, some painted on canvas, most on scraps of weathered picket fencing and rusty tin roofing. Now I come to a booth with a neon sign, The Destiny of Epidermis, and everything under it. The local woman has purchased a franchise of Rev 9, a cosmetic and plastic surgery undertaking. I flip through the corporate capabilities brochure titled Let Us Love You. Constant admiration, adulation. You may secure the envy of others with our patented Rev 9 system. This kit contains 4 feelings of shame and worthlessness. The feelings often react within and between others. Who can then be covertly threatened with personal apocalypse and manipulated to serve your needs. They may be the cyberneticists, man transformed to smoothly functioning feedback mechanisms, shaping a technological imagery of religious and erotic feelings, crucified via a veil of tears, the self-contained machine sanctified in the endless quest of personal meaning, too busy to notice the stench, the meaninglessness as the value. Clean, eternal balance of emotional control, erotically curious, adorned with golden feet and glass eye, always young, always plastic, glass corneas containing photoelectric cells connected to gold-plated co-electrodes, to optic nerves, the intimate membranes reproducing in polyethylene pressure relays, leading to a single silver cable linked to the correct register of the digital skull, cracking in the orgasm of virginity lost to the gear shift of her MG, the well-oiled cam, an autoerotic machine and profane fulcrum for applying vulnerabilities, conquering force, the ever-erotic tool, deletion of tenderness and love. The chili cook-off has attracted an assortment of a half-dozen cooks and looking to amass points that may help them qualify for the big championship cook-off in Terlingua in November. There is even a domestic dispute. I am looking over a booth of thoroughbred swings, old car tires gussied up to look like saddled horses, when I hear someone behind me, the first murmured signs of consternation between the man and woman. It isn't until they raise their voices a bit that I realize the couple is Jack and Tina. Don't tell me to calm down, Tina says. I don't have any calm left. I've used it all up on all your lie. People are starting to stare at the crazy girl, Jack warns. All smiles. He takes Tina by the arm and tries to lead her toward the stairs to her apartment. Bad move. Go fuck one of your strippers, she suggests, 'cause you're sure not going to do it anymore to me. Tina spins on her heels and starts up the stairs. A nice exit, but not nice enough to escape the slings of the town gossips. Good riddance, one of the women from the pony wedding party comments. That boy was bad news. I'll say, another woman remarks. I know that Wells girl crazy about him, but he ain't never going to marry her. But why the cow if the milk's free? Tina leans over the railing, glaring down upon the women. And never call me a cow, she says. She climbs the remaining steps up to the landing and slams the door behind her. What a little bitch, Jack remarks happily, undisturbed by the spectacle. She didn't mean it, I say. She had a bad experience earlier with a police barricade. Yeah, but she's still a bitch, he repeats, and she's boring. Let's go to Plato's Palace. Can't. I'm on the clock. I thought they were going to fire you. Me too, but it turns out that I'm still less of a pain in the butt than the other reporter. Please don't quit, my old boss said. He even said they may bring me back downtown. Okay, I have a confession. The please don't quit conversation never took place. Why? Because I have another confession. I didn't speak at the year of meeting. The stranger wasn't there either. Like everyone else, I just sat in silence, wishing I was the sort of person who could speak it. But for this film, I think it was important that I do assert myself. Today's moviegoers require their protagonists to be men of action. Take my phone conversation with Allison, for instance. I was such a man of action that... No? You're right, of course, I confess that conversation didn't happen either. Not even today. Safe on my island prison. Would I say anything like that to Allison? She'd kill me. After we fill up on free chili samples, Jack heads for the car, and I wander toward the stage. I am caught short by the sight of dozens of dominoes running down the sidewalk on little legs, trailed by Harold Bost and his angry wife. It's impossible, someone marvels. Yes, Mr. Boss has pulled another of his tricks, replies, on the run. Ornery old man. Next I notice a booth I'd missed the first time, a table with a stack of books and a banner, the divine marketplace of benign ideas, as seen on Les TV, and behind the table a familiar face. Hello, Mark, she says. Hello, Magnetica. Don't worry, Magnetica says. I've really changed since the old days. No more Barbie toys, no more sharp instruments. Your DNA delivery organs are safe. That is a relief. I saw the story in the agenda, she adds. I guess if you live on one of the coasts like Magnetica, then you don't have to say New York. It wasn't one of my prouder moments, I admit. Don't worry. People who know you know that you're not a misogynist. Thanks. Remember the time I got you to try on my panties? So what are you doing these days? I am now known to the world as a fully certified existence reason trainer. I've even written a book about it. Miss Barbie Girl is all smiles as I examine her latest tome, calling Dr. Deity How to Create and Use Curative Prayer. I peruse the jacket copy. Sincerely engrave the thoughts of your life into your life. That's the message of hope offered by Magnetica O famously. She shares a novel tale of devotion to study, to description, and to expansion of the unrestrained condition of our personal possibility. Once a defunct, disfigured creature lost in the landscape of the phantom, she found her calling and began the process of peeling away the aged, obsolete, and vague notions. The result was a radical transformation both of herself and of her bond with the marvelous one. Discover for yourself the richness and the plentiful potential of curative prayer. Read Calling Dr. Deity. Magnetica O famously is a former edict maker for several nationwide periodicals, including The Twilight of Satisfactoriness and The Usurping Person Who Reads. She is now the creator and chief of the Total Alliance of Existence Reason Trainer and Direct Originality Nuns. She lives in Burial Chamber, California, with her questionably gendered companion, who mummified Egyptian cats and an Art Deco flea market urn containing the ashes of her father, who always called her Princess. Congratulations, I say. Looks like you found your calling. I'd love to tell you about it. Maybe we could have dinner, catch up on old times. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I am married now. The smile instantly vanishes, replaced by a metallic insect stare. I want to have dinner with you, not your wife, she replies. Okay, I didn't mean anything by it. Yes. Let's get together soon. I tried to give Magnetica a smile, but she seems even more offended by this attempt than she was by my "I'm married" comment. Her eyes flash with the tempered glint of surgical steel. No, Cowboy Roy's Radio Ranch for me. A few minutes before airtime, Sam's tipster calls. The Satan worshippers are gathering for a black mass at midnight in the cemetery. So instead of attending the show, Sam and I spend about 45 minutes camouflaging the Toyota bubble top, covering it with vines and limbs we tear and pull out from an overgrown fence line. Nightfall comes, and we spend another couple of hours sitting in glow of the dashboard lights, the silence of the night, broken only occasionally by the hiss and pop of the dispatcher's radio. Every few minutes a set of headlights rounds the bend in the road as it curves past the cemetery, twin beams glinting across the polished granite headstones interspersed among the ancient crumbling monuments. But the lights always pass by. Soon as those devil worshippers light the first candle, I'm hitting the lights and siren and tearing out of this thicket. They're gonna think they've conjured up the devil himself. You really think this is the real thing, I ask? I mean, not just kids on a dare? The constable shrugs. All I've got to go on is an anonymous phone call. Come midnight, there's going to be a black mass with another animal sacrifice. Maybe it'll be kids, maybe it'll be devil worshippers. Either way, there'll be trespassers. That's going to be the minimum charge anyway. But if they don't do anything, my voice trails off. Sam has a pained, disapproving look on his face. It is a look that I am accustomed to, commonly displayed by those who do not appreciate my devil's advocate approach to journalism. And if they've got a calf with them, Sam continues, they'd better hope they can produce a bill of sale, because I'll call the Cattle Raisers Association, and if their investigators say the calf is stolen, those kids on a dare are looking at a felony. The whole bunch of them, no exception. A few minutes before midnight, two sets of twin white dots approach. The headlights slow as the drivers eased off the road into the bar ditch, stopping just short of the cemetery gate. The doors open, filling the night with carefree laughter. No candles, no black robes, no calves, just normal bored teenagers. Looks like you've been had, I say, but Sam ignores me. He quietly summons the radio dispatcher and describes the situation. Do you want me to send a deputy to your location? The dispatcher asks. Negative on the dispatch, Dora, Sam says, but I may need some help later. Running all them into town. This could be a busy night. Busy night indeed. I immediately find myself rooting for the devil teens. A new set of headlights approaches, sending the teenagers scrambling behind the monuments. As the headlights swing around, the teens rise from their hiding places and march toward the road, stiff-kneed and arms outstretched like Night of the Living Dead. One of them is wearing a sombrero. Look at me, I'm the corn chip hombre, he says. Chit man, I want to kiss your sister. The other teenagers think this is very funny. Quick, shoot him in the head, one of them says. It's the only way he'll die. And then the fun is over. Sam flips on the red and blue rooftop lights and guns the car out of the thicket. We cross the road mere feet off the rear bumper of the passing car, and I can almost see the wide, terrified eyes of the driver. The Toyota bubble top noses hard into the bar ditch in front of the cemetery, coming up the other side like a boat cresting a wake. We slide to a sideways stop a couple of car lengths shy of the teenagers' cars. Stay right where you are, Sam's voice booms out of the loudspeaker inside the front grille. The laughing teens immediately fall silent, zombie arms drooping to their sides. Somewhere in the blue and red flashes a girl moans and begins to cry. Oh God, we're going to jail, she wails. While Sam lines the kids up along the cemetery's cyclone fence, I look over their cars. One is a van, a big Ford Econoline model with a V10 under the hood and 4 or 5 rows of bench seats. Stenciled along the side is the name of a local church. I pass on the name to Sam. Presbyterians, I should have known, Sam scowls. You'd never catch a Baptist kid out walking all over graves at midnight. We didn't walk on any graves, the crying girl asserts. Why, how would you know, girl? Sam says it's too dark to see nothin'. How'd you like it if somebody started walking on your grave? That question sets the girl to crying anew, and it sets me to wishing I'd declined the constable's stakeout offer. Clearly, there will be no story of any importance. At most, it might get an unbylined police brief reporting that a dozen or so miners have been arrested for trespassing at the Old Fellows Cemetery. But just then, an as-yet undiscovered teenager suddenly comes running out of the underbrush, rail-thin and pale. His face glows terrified in the moonlight. Somebody else got here first, the boy hisses, churning his friends into an immediate uproar. What are they doing? Another boy asks. Freaked me out, the boy replies. They're not talking, just making weird noises. Oh God, the devil worshippers are here, one girl moans. Sheriff, help us. trespassing and grave walking are instantly forgotten. Sam reaches for his holster. Point me to them, he orders the boy. The boy sets off into the dark unknown, and we all follow him through the unmarked Mexican section, presumably walking all over the graves, into the shadowy underbrush. Sam is crouching down low, peering into the darkness. We hear rustling and grunting in unintelligible, then a snap like someone stepping on a twig breaks the silence. The milky-faced boy spins hard on the constable. He's got a gun, he warns. This sends the other teens into instant panic. Quick, shoot him. I also see the gun, but I see who is holding it. Sam, don't shoot, I yell. That's Roy Thornton. Too late, the great tongue of blue flame leaps from the constable's revolver, lighting up the darkness. The blue flash is reflected back at us by a half-dozen bovine retinas, and the night erupts in wailing and fearful cries. A wall of sweet-smelling teenage bodies rushes past, almost knocking me off my feet. The thud of bodies falling and crashing through the undergrowth. A mix of crying and laughter. Roy, I call out, are you there? He's there. Unfortunately for Roy, Sam is not much of a shot. That damn sheriff spooked my herd, he complains. It'll take me all night to round them back up. I can just make out the longhorns loping down the bar ditch into the night. A farmhouse porch light snaps into the in the distance. More wails and screams and laughter. Turns out there is more to the story than I first realized. That idiot shot a cow, one of the teenagers reports. The laughter is suddenly outpacing the crying. Stop, you sons of bitches, Sam rails at the fleeing teenagers. You're all under arrest. But the Presbyterians keep on running, right out to the road and into their cars and van. Taillights pop on and disappear into the night. Sam fires his pistol into the sky and calls for me to get back to the car. They're getting away, he explains. That you're going to have a real story now, a high-speed pursuit. You coming or not? I do not come. Instead, I join Roy on his trail drive. He equips me with his spare mount, no doubt pilfered from the same ranch where he rustled his herd. This is great, he says. I've been needing someone to ride drag. Roy, what's this all about? We're driving the herd up to Chisholm Trail, Chisholm Trail, of course. What do you think it's all about? Despite my best efforts, I am unable to convince Roy that this is not the 1880s, and he is not driving cattle to the Kansas railhead. At one point, Cowboy Roy becomes convinced we are surrounded by Indians. He upholsters Grandpappy Thornton's Bisley and draws down on an old windmill, shooting the engine off the top. The rusty aerometer rings like a ranch house dinner bell, and my horse almost throws me out of the saddle. Greenhorn. Roy mutters. After an hour or so of negotiating dark, uncertain bar ditches, we emerge from a thorny mesquite thicket to discover the headlights of Interstate 35 West and the giant metal warehouse of a roadside bar called the Outlaw Saloon. I am immensely relieved that we have found a place to rest. The saddle has rubbed the insides of my thighs raw, and the salty sweat has set the flesh to a slow burn. I try standing in the stirrups, but the animal's jarring gait makes my knees ache. Alas, Roy is right. I am no cowboy. However, Cowboy Roy couldn't be happier. Riding between the cars in the Outlaw parking lot, I am slouching over the saddle horn, trying to look inconspicuous to a bleary-eyed couple staggering out of their cars. As old Gus would say, there's nothing like riding a fine horse into a new country, he remarks. How about we go in for a drink? I make a quick check of my watch. 10 minutes till 2. Last call in Texas. Why not? Cowtown, Roy says, chuckling softly as he nods to himself and strokes his chin. Why, I bet it's been 20 years since me and the Queen of the Prairie shared a Saturday night together. Lots of good memories, lots of good pokes, mighty friendly whores in that Fort Worth, and Hell's Half Acre. Say, did I ever tell you about the time I played Pharaoh with Sam Bass? We take 2 stools at the bar, and Roy's still talking a mile a minute, spinning his Wild West tale. Did I ever tell you about the time I almost rescued that little settler girl from the Comanche? He asks. No, you never did. Well, it was down there in DeWitt County, and they got her when she wasn't but 100 yards from her family's cabin, picking up pecans along a little creek. They grabbed her and hauled her off to the Guadalupe Mountains. The squaws made her into their slave, beat her and pulled her hair. They even burned the soles of her feet so she wouldn't run off, poor thing. I was out on a surveying expedition when we stumbled across them. There was 6 of us. and about 50 of them, so we cut a hasty retreat. Didn't learn till a year or so later that they had hostages with them. Had I only known, I'd have chased them, murderous savages, across the Llano and straight into hell, if need be, to have rescued that little girl. Caught up in the tale, I momentarily forget my goal of reining in my deluded friend. So whatever happened to the girl, I asked. Oh, eventually they got her back. Pretty soon after that, we made a treaty with the Comanche, and they delivered her up to the commissioners in San Antonio. She was returned to her family, but she was never the same. Her health was ruined by the hard living and the tortures visited upon her by those savages. You know, there was no place on her body that wasn't scarred or burned by those monsters. I tell you, the Comanche were cowardly, inhuman beasts, and I, for one, do not mourn their passing. I leave Roy at the bar with a $20 bill and go off in search of the payphone, which I find in the little plywood-paneled vestibule that leads to Bull's and Heifer's restroom. Hello, a sleepy voice Tina answers. Hey, this is Mark Leach. How nice. I was just laying there, here, waiting for your call. What a smart aleck. And here I am, trying to help. Well, sorry to bother you this time of night, but I thought you might want to come collect your grandfather, otherwise known as Captain Augustus McCrae, the Texas Ranger. After Tina agrees to meet us in the parking lot, I quickly dispatch my bathroom business and return to the bar to collect Cowboy Roy, but the old man isn't here. Instead of enjoying the much-discussed shot of red-eye, Roy has left his glass and bar stool to engage one of the bouncers, a well-groomed, rather round specimen who resembles a fat Garth Brooks, in a spirited debate over the wisdom of packing a six-shooter in a licensed drinking establishment. You got to take that thing out of here, the bouncer insists. This isn't a right-to-carry state, and it's a violation of TABC regulations. Cowboy Roy won't cotton to that, though. I'll only check my gun with the sheriff, not some dawdling, snot-nosed barkeep, he says. Now bring me a bottle of Dr. Dickfurs and 2 glasses. Not good. I make my way toward Roy, but I'm not quick enough. The argument has already caught the attention of the outlaw bar's more intoxicated patron. That's right, you don't give your gun to nobody but the law. Hell, let's make him the law. Yeah, old man, you be the sheriff now. Then somebody pours a beer down the back of the bouncer. He spins around in a rage. Which one of you bastards did that, he says. Meanwhile, 2 starch-shirted, crew-cut types have cornered a wetback on the floor between Zaxxon and Mrs. Pac-Man, where they are administering a vigorous ass-kicking. You all done lost the Alamo. Go back to Mexico. Why, Kevin, he ain't no wetback, one of the men remarks. This one here's an Arab. Kevin stops kicking. That right, boy? You an Arab? I am from Tehran, the beaten man replies. This is not a wise admission. Sand nigger. Kevin and his friend resume their attack. A thick, dark liquid oozes from the horseshoe-shaped laceration on the Iranian's olive-skinned forehead, but neither the wound nor the continuing blows seem to have much effect. He is ranting about his homeland, something political. Marxism, Leninism is prominently mentioned. It is will of people that has endowed the misguided Ayatollah with this mandate to rule. And then he suddenly shifts subject, starts talking about the guerrilla drive-in movement. The will of the people rejects the $20 experience and embraces the do-it-yourself cinema. Shut up, commie Jew boy, Kevin says. He pounds on the victim's left ear, instantly transforming the fleshy appendage into a violent tinged cauliflower. Except it's not an ear, it's a broken piece of exoskeleton. So that's it. The generic transformation has begun. Dark liquid violence pours from the man's scalp and down the neck of his white shirt, open wide to reveal a gray thorax, gold chains. His left eye turns inward like a Picasso and glazes over in a metallic grid. Here's what you need, he hisses, filling the room with a mangled staccato cry of summer. A big blank wall of darkness. Bad things happen in the dark and old corner of creation and unsanctioned sex. You better watch your mouth, boy, Kevin warns. Check for areas full of weirdness. warehouses of prostitutes, billion-watt concrete retaining walls of educational malls. Keep in mind that you will need batteries. Religion is simply the tool of and camouflage for a decadent bouleversement. Death to America. You are all fucking cocksuckers. Bad crazies. No self-respecting red-blooded Texan male can last more than 10 seconds after such an insult without responding with at least token fury. This is especially true if the epithet is delivered by a giant extraterrestrial insect. I'm going to slice off your pecker, Kevin says, waving a broken bottle. A surge of fear crashes over me. I am unable to take my eyes from the jagged glass. The terror in my chest says a throat has been cut. I reach for Roy's arm, but the old man is gone. Cowboy Roy stands behind Kevin, taking aiming at his tailbone with the tip of his pointy-toed boot. Don't, I say. Too late. Roy's kick sends Kevin crashing into Mrs. Pac-Man. What the hell? The man is scrambling for his feet, his face an angry blur. I'm going to. Roy draws, catching Kevin midway up with the heel of his bisley. A red bubble instantly sprouts from his forehead. He stumbles again into the video game. The cowboy must never shoot first at a smaller man, Roy says, or take unfair advantage. He must never go back on his word or a trust confided in him. He must always tell the truth. He must be gentle with children, the elderly. Kevin regains his footing and squints at Roy through a swelling purpled ringed eye. That ain't fair, Kevin scowls, his gaze settled squarely on the bisley. Roy considers this remark and slips the gun back into the holster. You've got a point. You got a point, he admits. I've never been one to let my pistol freeze in the holster. Roy takes off his gun belt and hands it to me. Let's settle this outside. The fight doesn't take long. Kevin throws the only punch, a drunken fist arcing lazily through the vapor-lamped night and falling a couple of feet short of Roy's chest. Apparently only sober enough for kicking, his attempt at using an upper extremity results in a listing stagger and loss of balance. He stumbles to one knee. Cowboy Roy stares down at him in morally triumphant disgust. Get up so I can whoop you good, he says. This solicits a friendly mix of applause and laughter from the strangers who've stopped to watch on the way to their cars. Boyd, where are you? Kevin bellows out to his accomplice. No one comes to his aid. Shame rallies the fallen Kevin to his feet, but he doesn't stay on his feet long. Quietly watching from the doorway, the newly emerged cicada uses his middle legs to deliver two small, quick kicks to the back of Kevin's knees. The drunken cowboy collapses in his hands, on his hands, and throws up. His face is washed green in the fluorescent sheen from the billboard across the parking lot. I glance up at the sign and laugh. Don't let impotency ruin your life. You can't make stuff like that up, I remark to Roy, handing him his gun and holster. Roy buckles on the gun belt. However, the giant cicada is not done yet. Death to you, the cicada says. He delivers a spirited kick to Kevin's heaving ribcage. You are useless, weak, and a coward. Insect politics demand that you be absorbed by the hive. Absorbed, then we will project you on a smooth, light surface. We'll bake some cookies, get to know our neighbors, invite others into your unused spaces. Then the constable arrives. A quick blast of siren and the familiar blue and red strobe of law enforcement lights up the gravel parking lot. I am instantly engulfed in the white dust and headlights of fleeing cars and pickup. I catch a brief glimpse of Sam Cunningham's hawk-nosed profile in the open window of the Toyota bubble top, a tendril of woody vine dangling from the rear door handle as he punches the accelerator in pursuit of the last of the vehicles. I watch his taillights disappear into the night. That was pretty exciting, I say, turning to Cowboy Roy for agreement, but he is gone. A quick check of the light pole confirms that the horses are gone too. I squint into the darkness. Cowboy Roy is nowhere to be seen. He headed north. The giant cicada hisses, continuing to kick the now unconscious Kevin. North to where, I ask. North to the Chisholm trial, to the railhead, to the point of departure, to the land of the dead. He should have waited for the pause before the second feature. Good neighborly relations, you know. What? The intermission. It's a chance to mingle, to get to know each other and ourselves under the stars. Ah, I wish I had my nunchucks. If only my dorm mates could see me now, they would not be so quick to laugh at me later. He spreads his iridescent wings and disappears into the night. Stars are falling from the heavens. Look, there's another one, Tina observes. She points her finger at the spot where a blue-tinged flare extinguishes itself against the iron grey sky. What did you wish for this time, I ask. Same as before, for all men to lose their peckers. The meteorite shower has been underway for a good hour. Although I am no authority on shooting stars, it strikes me as a rather extraordinary display, and I'm not the only one. The late-night radio has been actively noting the celestial activity now blazing across a wide swath of the southwest sky. A fair number of the flaming rocks have made it to Earth. One is even believed to have ignited a grass fire near Azle. Men are crap, Tina says. You know, Jack's not a bald man, I remark. Not a bad man. What would you know about it? Men aren't the only ones who get bent over in the hot showers. How do you think you'd like it, grabbing your ankles while some bastard shoves it up your... All I'm saying is not all men are crap. Oh, not you, right? Well, I got the photos to prove it. What are you talking about? Tina shakes her head. All I'm saying is women would like to be a lot better off if all men would lose their pecker. And what about women? What would women do then? Tina scratches her chin, pretending to think. Maybe we could stitch them onto ourselves, she says. Yeah, we'd stitch them on, and then we'd bend you over and in the hot shower. See how you'd like it for a change. Harsh. Maybe Jack really is a bad man. Clearly he must have done quite a number on her. I find my thought absently wandering southward, assuring myself that the DNA delivery organ is still in place. It's been an hour now, I say. Maybe we ought to take another swing through town. Whatever, Grandpa might have gone back to the saloon. Frederiksbad Street, a crowd of women has gathered in front of the Silver Spur. Some are holding torches, others are passing out bottles of Ozona water. They are all facing someone who is standing alone on the stage, talking into a megaphone. Isn't that your old girlfriend? Tina asked. Sure enough, Magnetica is center stage. I recognize the glint of surgical steel flashing in her eyes. It's time we take back the night, Magnetica exhorts the crowd. Time we take it back from the purveyors of on-beam pornography, men who would use the collective unconscious to demonically possess women in a virtual world of real sex and real violence, wrapped in kinky cinematography and grape leaves. They desire to consume a passionate, violent love lunch where sensual busloads of soldiers who divine our forbidden hair roll through the sound stage and plumbing, unforgettably terrifying as they destroy the purity of our own sweet creation. They desire to incite real violence again, women through real sex against women. When we as women consent to sex, the on-beam world becomes an everyday subjugation in which women are accomplices in their own rape. That's right, one of the torch-wielding women responds. I read about them in the New York Agenda, those perverts. That's a man for you. Another woman says, I'll stick and no care. I sense a disturbance at the far edge of the town. Father Bypass is confronting one of the women. Don't drink the water, he pleads, pointing to the Ozona bottle poised at her lips. I've seen preliminary results of a clinical trial that shows we're in the terminal stages of fluoride 9 type psychotropic epidemic among women of childbearing age. Incidents of psychotic rage are up tenfold. We're also seeing signs of massive hormone imbalances, perhaps related to the psychotic episodes, but disturbing in their own right. Bra manufacturers report that average cup sizes are growing at an exponential rate, a sort of super feminization, if you will. I circle around the perimeter, stopping Father Bypass just as he is about to lecture another water drinker. I lead him away from the crowd, over to the darkened front door of another cafe. This is not a friendly audience, I counsel him. Doesn't it all seem a bit strange? You're going to see a lot of strange things from now on, Father Bypass says. It's because of the water, the rainwater. I ran a spectrum analysis of an ambient air sample through my Runcible coil not an hour ago, came back with a 0.8 millivolt reading. He pauses for a suitably impressed response. I don't know what that means, I admit. Well, it's a clear indicator of a massive surge in the background exotoxin level. He is severely agitated, hopping from foot to foot like my sons do when they need to urinate but are too busy playing to take a potty break. I mean, it knocked the top end off the female pheromone signature. The usual spike of the graph is gone. The graphic relief had looked like the Mount of the Divine. It's just a no-account mesa. I look at him, still hopping around on one foot. I have another thought. Say, Father, when was the last time you slept? 3 days ago. But no time to rest now, he insists, savagely grabbing his crotch. Ozona International knows all about it. They've got the data, but they're sitting on it. They're under pressure from the government. I call it the conspiracy. Fertile women of childbearing age might be going crazy, but they're still qualified voters. Can you believe it? They have a right to be crazy. We're talking major psychotic episodes, Mark, and it could potentially reach a planetary scale. I start walking away. You should really go home, I tell him. Get some rest. At least take a case of Ozona with you. In men, it has a temporary counter-response when consumed in large quantities in a short time period. Confidentially, Mark, there may be many more symptoms that I can't see, either because I don't know what I'm looking for, or because the psychotropic compounds have begun to affect me too. I can no longer fully trust my own perceptions of reality. Well, that could be a sign you need to take a break. I see that he is now looking past me. I turn around. The stranger has joined us. This has been some good movie making, I say. I particularly like torture, giving the whole thing a primitive tone, like the villagers going off to burn Frankenstein's monster in the wind. But the stranger doesn't smile. In fact, he looks positively morose. His eyes are red. He's been crying. The church is gutted, he says. No pews, no vintage supercomputer equipment floor, nothing there but a warm text breeze troubling the floor of base like our dream. Yes, they were clearly utilizing the clock scan network, and they took it all. Who took it? The BODs. They took all the equipment, the research things, being dark. They rolled in about midnight, a squad of government in blacks driving a fleet, big black caddy. Get this, 158 Gali 500. The car of death, trust and Mark. Now in a state of terminal agitation, Father bypasses, gesticulating wildly at the crowd. Psychotropic compounds are making their way into the food chain, he says, depositing in our fatty tissues. It's making us crazy, I tell you. Snickers, derision, torchlights flickering crazily. Don't you laugh, he chides them. If we don't find a way to slow this epidemic soon, we'll soon be a nation overrun by psychotic women. But it's already too late. Magnetica now has the crowd under her control. We must confront the Mark Leaches of the world, she says to roars of approval. I, for one, am not afraid of this confrontation. I do not fear risk, nor am I afraid of arrogance or error. So now we take back the night, so we may free ourselves from demonic possession. Shall we find our dream? Finally dream our own dream? Yes. Shall we be compelled to live out the dreams of the likes of Mark Leach? She asks. No, the crowd responds. I bet she's been drinking Ozona, Father Bypass says. We know these men, these inhuman, cold-blooded creatures, Magnetica continue. We know these alien entities, these shadow beings with their skeletons on the outside and black hearts on the inside. They pluck the wings off women's hearts. Men like Mark Leach, they are the vivisectionists of the modern age. You ask them to have a simple dinner and they get all crazy. Oh no, I won't have sex with you. And what about his own mother? Did you read that piece of on-beam trash? The crowd begins to chant. Take back the night, take back the night, take back the night is right. No more will men compel us to be the containers for their mizzen global and warm globes of ectoplasm. We shall be our own muses, expel our own ectoplasm, inspire our own on-beam work and our own creations of the collective unconscious. No more shall men say no to an innocent dinner invitation with the excuse, I'm married. That's a man for you. All stick and no carrot. And from somewhere near the back, and I am not a cow. Tina, she is one of them now, a bottle of Ozona thrust high above her head. Those around her laugh and clap their approval. Someone hands her a flaming torch. I take a step into the darkness, my backbone bumping against the cafe door. Shame on Mark Leach, Magnetica says. A terrible on-beam creation to have about your mother. The woman who brought you into the world with grand hopes for a perfected being. I think of the wings this odious creation has plucked off her heart. He's a mother plucker, someone says. The crowd laughs and picks up the chant. Mother plucker, and there he is, Tina says, waving her torch my way. The crowd goes into a fury. Take back the night, the women roar. We've got to get out of here, the stranger says, shoving me toward the alley in the direction of the church. But it is too late for sanctuary. I look around. We are one short. Where's Father Bypass, I ask. We spot him a half-block back, relieving himself against the side of a building. The crowd is closing in. I turn back to help, but the stranger catches me by the arm. No, Mark, a rescue is not in the script, he says. We watch helplessly as Father Bypass is pursued across the street and into the church. A minute. Later, he reappears on the roof next to the louvered belfry. Torches are tossed inside, so it comes to this. The creature is trapped in the Dutch windmill, surrounded by the bloodthirsty burgomaster and lederhosen-clad crowd. Father Bypass paces back and forth along the roof line, peering over the edges at Magnetica and her followers. Flames and smoke pour from the rafter. To his credit, Father Bypass does not attempt to leap to a safety that is not there. Instead, he climbs higher and grimly stands on the very peak of the roof, engulfed in orange flames and swirling smoke, a condemned soul. The roof collapses in a terrible cry, and Father Bypass disappears in a shower of sparks. "We've got to get out of here," the stranger says. We dart behind the stained sheet metal bay of the car wash, where we take perhaps a half dozen steps. Suddenly we are engulfed in blinding light. Little rock and sticks swirl and descend around us. I feel my feet lifting off the ground, floating on a beam of electric blue. On board the aerial clock, a prison. "Can you believe it?" young Einstein asks. "The world's first two-bodied man, fully human and fully divine," Dr. Morell says. "We'll still need confirmation at the molecular level. I'd like to see a full cortical scan, psychotropic biopsy, cytochrome P450 analysis, the works. Mr. Leach, I'd like to run a nucleic acid sequence analysis." Dr. Einstein reaches inside his lab coat and withdraws a blade of surgical steel. "I require only a small genetic sample," he says. I take a small step backwards, immediately up against the locked door. "Nothing to fear, really," he continues. "We only require a small tissue sample. Forearm will do. A quick run through the food processor, filter through a bit of cheesecloth to keep bone chips from clogging up the aerosol spray gun, and I'm ready to coat spaceship. That's where you'll find me administering to my flock," Morell says. "I do it on the week trip to Zeta Reticuli, inoculated against the spreading biodoom of the eschatological era. Then we'll quick freeze you and the stranger," young Einstein explained. "At absolute zero, we'll reintegrate your DNA and that of the others back into that of a simple being, with bits and pieces of Jack and Cinnamon and Corvette spliced in, of course. A total reintegration of your split-off personality. Yes, we cannot ignore the need for the deity equipped with a muse or two." After all, many of the ancient gods were hermaphrodite. I cast my eyes around the room, looking for a weapon, a piece of glassware, another surgical instrument, anything, but all I can find is a jar of tongue depressors. "So you see, it's a small thing we ask," Dr. Morell concludes. "A small piece of forearm. Why would you want to deny us this one simple thing?" I grab the jar of tongue depressors and raise them over my head with all the menace I can muster. "Come and get it," I say. Apparently, I am not a very threatening person, for young Einstein just laughs and puts the knife away. I shrug and toss the jar into the corner. And then, young Einstein asks, we reformat in time machine mode for a quick run to 1970, back when people were satisfied to take only their share of oxygen, kept their exotoxins themselves. I have heard these words before. "You've been reading my private journal," I say. "You break into people's homes too?" "No, but we do have access to your lovely creations via the infrastructure," Dr. Morell remarks. "Don't worry, it's been ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court." "Who are you guys?" I ask. "FBI, CIA, American Psychiatric Association," young Einstein says. "Hard to pick through the psychic discards without being seen. What with your followers now ranked in the hundreds, lost pilgrims gathering daily outside your little North Dallas special, turning the antique brick and gaslight into a 24-hour-a-day shrine, and trampling the neighbor's lantana too. So sad, I hear they've even petitioned the Pope to make you a saint." "What are you talking about?" I ask. "Oh, sorry, we've been working from an alternate script, something created by the stranger, working title, Doubting Tommy. In this story, you are a stigmatic agnostic who is being worshipped by the true believer. You've really nothing to fear from us," young Einstein says. "In fact, we just might be your best hope." I shake my head. "I'd rather stay hoped," I remark. "And a word of advice," Dr. Morell says. "Underage girls are usually unreliable, particularly in matters regarding middle-aged passion. Do not be fooled by the potency." Tina smiles. "It's not like that," I protest. "I only called her so we could find her grandfather. I was only trying to help." "Oh, then, if you were only trying to help. Besides, I'm not middle-aged. I'm still far, far away from 40. The big 40 is not even on my radar. No way. And Tina's 18 in 3 months. Morell thinks this is very funny." "You think that distinction will mean much to your wife?" Tina Wells. Even in the blue, ethereal glow of the dashboard lights, her perfect 19-year-old complexion took on a radiant glow. So peaceful there, a buxom teenaged woman, child asleep in the passenger seat. She had reminded a bit of my two young sons. That resemblance had served to briefly temper my arousal with regret. I hadn't seen my boys in 2 weeks, but the feeling of regret was hard to maintain. As we drove searching for Cowboy Roy, I kept stealing glances at Tina's breast, the uppermost portion visible above the top of her scoop-necked shirt. Jack had shown me a Polaroid of her naked, stretched out on a tropical print towel, as if tanning on the beach. The brown nipples rode a bit high on her breasts, upturned, you might say, a good detail to hold on to for fantasizing. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't help mentally adjusting her appearance to match the picture. Even in a world where scorned women stitch amputated DNA delivery organ, it wouldn't be a bad way to greet the conclusion time. Staring into the dashboard with a beautiful, with perfect brown nipples, except for one small complication. My wife is not a woman given over to distinct. Dr. Morell makes some reply, but I don't listen. Instead, my eyes fall on a tattered briefcase, open on a sofa bed. That father I pass, I say. Young Einstein agrees. He's loaning to us for the... I step over to the briefcase, pick up a paper from the top of the stack. It's an old-style computer printout, detachable tractor feed holes along the sides, tilted enhanced telemetry. The report tracks the rate of incoming meteorites against reports of psychotic. Father Bypass is dead, I knew that. Young Einstein pipes, I'm sorry for your loss, Doctor. You don't put a man on the moon without burning an asteroid, I say. Dr. Morell shakes his head sadly. Harsh, you don't seem to understand. We are the good guys. There really is no call for prejudice or fear. Sure, we took a few liberties, skirted genetic taboo. It was all for science. Dr. Morell, it's 45 minutes to sunrise, young Einstein says. Perhaps we should be getting on with the transformation. Agreed. Dr. Morell steps over to the video monitors and presses a button. A voice comes through the speaker. Talk to me. We're ready to initiate transfer. I'll be right down.